and I for the Kenai. We're back here at the Serenity Intake Office today with our second series of recovery stories. Joining us today is Sean. Sean, how are you today, man?
Good.
Good. To start us off, do you mind just telling us a little bit about where you're from?
Yeah. My name is Sean. I was born and raised in Oregon. I had a mom, dad, and one brother. And everything was provided for me very well as a child. My parents did not get along at all. There was always fighting going on, numerous split-ups. And, I was being dragged from one parent to the other. And, but, it was filled with plenty of love, except between my mom and dad. And they ended up getting divorced when I was probably, around 12 or so, junior high age. And I ended up living with my dad, and my brother ended up living with my mom.
How old was your brother? Were you older or younger?
No, he's younger. He's 3 years younger.
Yeah. Were you two pretty close growing up?
Yeah, very close.
So how far, if you don't mind me asking, how far away did you two end up when you were, so you were 12 and he was about 9?
Mm-hmm.
How far apart did you guys?
Probably only like 5-6 miles.
Okay.
So it was...
Still were able to see each other?
Oh, yeah. We both went to Catholic school. I know it'd be hard to believe today sometimes that I was raised that way, but so I had a strong belief in God, the traditional God was my higher power, and my dad ended up moving to Alaska, and
for a job or something.
Yeah, a job and just a change. We always kind of dreamed about it. Getting out.
So Aaron and I are brothers, and we grew up in Montana.
And,
yeah. And so I moved up here about like 6 years ago, and he moved up about like 9 months ago. So it's always interesting, to me at least, it's always a little bit interesting to hear like what brought other people to Alaska,
Yeah.
And one of the things is like it was a dream, or it wasn't necessarily a dream of mine, but I guess when someone was like, hey, you want to go to Alaska, it was like not even like considered twice. It was just kind of like, yeah, dude, that'd be cool.
Yeah.
I hate being warm. It just sounds like, I think maybe this is clearly a little bit off topic, but at least to people that in the lower 48, it seems like, and to me in the lower 48 at that time, like Alaska has like a mystery to it, that like other places.
Mystique.
Yeah,
very much so.
Yeah, so anyway.
There's still people who think you live in igloos, but
Yeah.
Right.
I've had people call me on the phone trying to get me to buy stuff, and they think of AK is Arkansas. I was like, no, it's Alaska. Alaska.
Yeah.
And they had one guy ask me, do you guys have phones up there?
Oh my god!
I was like, yes, we do. You called me on one. He's like, oh, that's right.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I know, right? When I found out I was going to go to Alaska for the summer, one of the next days, or the next couple days after I found out, I went into the AT&T store and I said, yeah, I'm going up to Alaska. I doubt that I'll be able to get cell service. I doubt it. But maybe you could fill me in on like maybe there's some ideas for me to somehow get some service out there. And he goes, where are you going? I said, oh, the Kenai Peninsula. And they go, oh yeah, you got good service there, bud. And I'm like, oh wow, cool. You got lucky. So I was totally that guy.
Think you're in this backwoods cabin.
I was totally that guy. Yeah.
So how old were you when you came to Alaska?
I came up and spent the summers with my dad up here, and I'd go back and until I finished school, and but I moved up here for good. My dad flew down, bought a brand new CJ7 Jeep the last year that they made them, and we drove back up, and I've been here ever since. I had my 18th birthday on the beach in Kenai here.
Wow.
And, yeah, it was pretty wild driving that up.
Yeah.
It was in the spring still,
Mm.
and we took the Cassiar Highway, which is, at the time, it was rougher,
Yeah.
gravel, but there were bridges that were washed out and stuff.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I was in four-wheel drive a lot of the time. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And I did that with no driver's license.
Oh my goodness.
I did lose my license when I was 17 for criminal mischief and drinking. I was spinning brodies down there on the grass in a county park, and just so happens the sheriff was already there waiting.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh man. And so that was.
Pretty
Yeah.
sure I've seen something like that on a movie or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds very,
Yeah.
very fast times at Ridgemont High. Yeah.
Yeah. I also had been kicked out of school for a couple weeks for showing up at school drunk, extremely
So
drunk.
when did you start drinking?
That's about when my parents got divorced.
About 12.
Yeah.
Pretty young.
I sure did, and I hung out with some boys that were from a place called Rainbow Lodge, which was they had criminal. You had to be a criminal, to get there, juvenile,
Mm-hmm.
and
Had to qualify.
yeah,
Yeah.
and you hang out sometimes with the wrong crowd. And,
Yeah.
but that's something I was looking for. I just felt a need to escape.
Mm-hmm.
It hurt me very deeply. It really does suck to want a nice family,
Mm-hmm.
and you just don't end up having one.
Yeah.
And so I moved up here and lived in North Pole. That's where my dad had lived. And,
If I can just interrupt, just
Yeah.
to jump back a little bit. So you were drinking pretty regularly throughout high school, but was that kind of, were you thinking, or just kind of, everyone else was kind of doing it? It wasn't a concern at this point? You weren't thinking in the back of your mind, like, maybe when I drink it's different than others, or anything that was starting to indicate,
no.
like maybe
no,
okay.
Well, I did have to go to the hospital
Right.
that one time.
But I think
too.
other teens at times, drink too much, you got a teenage brain,
Yeah.
drink, yeah, okay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It was
Just
mainly
trying-
weekend.
Yeah.
Sometimes during the week. Also, smoked marijuana.
Yeah. But at this point, it's kind of like
Yeah.
my
it's
other,
just-
my other friends are doing it. I got some. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so moved up here and for good,
Mm-hmm.
and lived there for a year. And that was back when actually North Pole wasn't connected to Fairbanks. I was up there a few years ago, and I was like, man, it's like grown right into it.
Oh.
But so moved down here to the Kenai Peninsula to Sterling, and I've lived in Sterling for 30 plus years.
Yeah.
I worked at Seafoods from Alaska there for a while. Met my wife there. Ended up getting married after her third proposal to me. I said, okay.
Oh, her proposal to you.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Need to get me one of them.
Yeah.
But yeah, she was a sweetheart.
Yeah. Yeah.
Still is. But my life was, I actually didn't really drink hardly ever from, like when I turned 21, I remember my dad took me to at the time it was a bar called the Bald Eagle, and we went there and had a couple of beers just because it was my 21st birthday. And yeah, and actually I used to go in there before I was 21. My dad actually was dating the bartender there.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know.
That seems very small town.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's definitely changed now for sure. But
I mean, coming from Montana, we see a lot of that, honestly. You know what I mean? It's one of those small town things. Everybody kind of knows everybody, you know.
Yeah.
It's honestly not seemingly super uncommon
No,
either
I
for a
wouldn't
lot of
think
those
so.
kinds of things,
Yeah.
especially then.
Yeah, it was no problem. There was another bar called Millie's. I could go up there and drink too, just as long as they didn't want me to sit at the bar, you know, at a table. And it was kind of funny. And have a Coke there real quick too.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you hardly ever saw any, you know, the only time the police officers showed up is if there was a huge fight or something.
Mm-hmm.
And
So would you say at that point, like, your life was going pretty great? So you're like, you know what? I don't need to escape anywhere. Like, why would I leave? Like,
yeah, exactly. I felt really good. I had a year-round job, had a nice girlfriend, and yeah, I didn't smoke weed. Didn't really drink much, just every once in a while, and ended up getting married. We flew down to Las Vegas and got married down there, and you know, it was fun, definitely fun. A lot more people showed up to it than I wanted to. Yeah, you mentioned Vegas. Oh, you're going to Vegas to get married? Yeah, we'll be there. It's like, yeah.
Actually, your invite got lost in the mail,
Yeah.
but I guess, yeah.
But yeah, so I did lots of fishing, hunting. Everything was great. Yeah, got married, you know, like I said, came back, and we lived in a few different places there in Sterling that we rented. But I always wanted to have a house, and so did my wife. And so we bought a place that was just kind of framed up, and with a couple different lots, like 1 acre lot property, and ended up working on it, and finished it all up, and with some help from my father-in-law and a few friends, you know, when needed. And yeah, I had a nice place there, and we were waiting to have kids because my wife really wanted to have kids, and this is something we talked about before we were married. I was like, you know, typical guy, yeah, you know, okay, and but I wanted to have a place, you know, something owned.
Mm-hmm.
And so she came home one day and was just lit up like a beam, you know, big old smile. And I'm looking at her. As she came in the door, I knew something was up, you know, but it must be good.
Mm-hmm.
And she goes, I asked her, yeah, what's going on? I'm pregnant. And I was like, actually, I had a beer in my hand at the time. I can remember.
Mm-hmm.
It was a nice summer day. And I instantly dropped my beer straight out of my hand.
Yeah.
yeah.
I was like, oh, okay. Man, guess I'm going to be a dad.
Yeah.
I was like, well, cool.
How old are you at this point?
I was probably, I'm trying to think, actually probably around 25. And, you know, we had waited, you know, like I said, a few years, and instead of like some people, you know, or most people, I should say. So once I remember I started drinking a little bit more, kind of just the anxiety, you know, and nervous about what's, you know, how our lives are going to change.
Mm-hmm.
And I can remember going to the hospital here in Soldotna when she was in labor, and my mom had even flown up, and just had, you know, like the entire waiting room were people, you know, relatives, you know. And I was like, oh, man. You know, so I walked in, I walked right out, went to the liquor store, bought a pint of whiskey, came back, and drank some there in the hospital in the bathroom, and then went back out. and went in, and about an hour later, cut the umbilical cord of my daughter, firstborn. And
So at that point, were you thinking maybe maybe there's some red flags here?
yeah,
Or
just a little
at that
bit.
point in
Yeah.
your life, maybe were you thinking somewhere along the lines of like maybe I use this to like cope or self-medicate a little more than
Yeah,
is good or
I didn't really
preferred?
notice it or think of it as anything really bad, you know.
Sure.
But there were some signs
Sure.
like that one, you know.
When you're in it, it might be harder than when
Yeah.
you're back, right? Yeah.
Maybe was it more like, well, this probably isn't socially acceptable. You're like,
Well, yeah, there's a reason I drank it in the bathroom. You know?
right. But you weren't like, oh, this is a problem. It's just like, yeah, nobody needs to see this. But it didn't feel like, oh, this could become an issue sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I thought it was, I could control it just fine.
Mm-hmm.
And we went home and, started life with a new little girl. And as she grew up, I can remember taking her to do gold prospecting, and took her hiking. I had one of those little backpacks where you can put them in.
Yeah.
And because she could walk and stuff, but not super far. Had her little potty chair in the back of my truck. Set her up in that, when we were prospecting. And but she was potty trained really young, before age 2.
Wow.
And we got to see some big brown bears too in Cooper Landing. I took her out, and showed her. She was asleep. Took her out, and I said, "Yeah, look over there." She just looked, and eyes, got huge, and she just lit up. Bear? And I said, "Yeah." And there was a huge male and a female. But went on from there, and had my son born 2 years later. And at that time,
same anxiety kind of around that.
yeah. My wife came home, same thing,
Yeah.
and opened the door, except she was like, just a little bit of tears.
Really.
Yeah. And I said, what's wrong? I'm pregnant again. And I was like, oh, all right. And ended up, had a son then. Things were pretty good. I still had a good job. I was a mechanic at a boat and snow machine business that's still here in town. It's like the biggest one. And so things were going really good. And then
At this point, it kind of sounds like the pretty typical Alaskan life. You know what I mean? You got wife, couple kids, house.
yeah,
You kind of just living life at this point. It seems like
yeah, house, boat, and snow machine, and started going snow machining a lot more then, like every weekend. And I did start to notice. I didn't think it was a problem, but always had a lot of beer and whiskey and stuff with us.
On the weekends.
Yeah.
What about on the weekdays at this point?
Sometimes after work, yeah, I'd stop and buy a 12-pack, and
would you say, I mean, as best as you can kind of gauge, was your wife at this point a little bit concerned or a little bit like upset or like fed up with drinking at this point? Like, what are some of the people around you, how are they treating your drinking at this point?
yeah, my wife wasn't fed up at the time, and she was okay, but yeah, there were definitely, times when I had way too much, and and just the craziness that goes, around with it. And my wife didn't drink, maybe one margarita or a daiquiri or something a year. And
So it's just stressful for her when those
Yeah.
kind of things would occur.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm sure it was. And it's kind of one of those things that the people around you kind of think that, you know, well, you could have a problem, you know, before I was thinking that.
Sure.
And, but yeah, I did some really crazy things, you know. I mean, not really fighting with her, but just, you know, going in the ditch on certain roads, you know, back roads, and I didn't even know where I was at, you know, when I'd wake up. And yeah, so I did try to quit a couple times, tone it down. Yeah.
Because you just thought these are causing some
I started buying beer, you know, every night after work. And
do you know what, was it just kind of a slow thing where you're just like, it's probably not that big of a deal? Or was it like, I guess, did you feel guilty about going to the ditch? Or it's just like, what kind of change, or was there a change between, you know, it's like, on the weekends, you know, after work, and then it's like kind of getting more consistent? Was there kind of a feeling associated with that, or was it just kind of like a slow thing?
Yeah, it was kind of slow at first, you know, but it definitely progressed. I just, you know, my friends and stuff, I was in the party crowd. But, you know, I'd stop on the way home at friends' houses, and, you know, drink beer and stuff for a while. And, yeah, I did try to quit a few times, you know, week.
Yeah.
You know, and then it's like, well, it's the weekend, I'm going to do this.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was kind of a thing like, you know, well, I work hard, you know, play hard. So,
yeah.
You know, when it's Miller time, it's Miller time.
Yeah. I think that's a common attitude in Alaska, especially in certain industries. You know, I bet there's a lot of hard labor jobs, whether that be, you know, mechanic or oil jobs or fishing or, you know, commercial fishing, whatever, where, you know, you work real hard and then, you know, getting torn up, you know, for a couple days is just part of the culture, and it just kind of, you know, at that point, it's not seen as a problem, or it's just kind of what you do, you know. So
yeah,
I think that can be.
I kind of looked at it
as
being almost proud of it.
Just part of the culture, yeah.
Not almost. I was proud, you know.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I can, you know, I'm Alaskan, you know. Work hard, play hard, and
I think that's important to consider.
I think that's very common.
Yeah.
Especially in those industries, you know, to be proud of it. Like, one of those things where, like, oh, yeah, I can go out and drink till 2, and I'm going to be right up for work at 8, you know. Like, no matter what day it is, I'm always ready to have a good time, you know. Like, there is a pride associated with being that guy and being looked at as that guy and feeling like the guy in those certain contexts.
And I think that's, you know, important to consider. I don't think, you know, none of us, like, exist on, like, our own little island, you know. I mean, the attitudes around us are influential, and they're gonna, you know. So when you hear, I guess when I hear somebody's like, you know, I was drinking hard and, you know, going in the ditch and blacking out 3 times a week, you know, some people from, you know, certain would be like, and you don't think you might have had some red flags, but then when you really take that cultural element into it, they weren't like red flags, and in fact there were probably indicators that you were doing some things okay.
Well, it's like war stories. It's like, yeah, I went into the ditch last week, but I made it, and they're like, hey, and, you know, I mean, because that's what it is. Like, I did the same thing, you know, last week. Put my snow machine through the garage door or something, you know, just something crazy, and you're just like, you have a laugh about it. But I mean, eventually that's kind of like the stories that you share. It's just like, oh, we did this crazy thing, and it's like, well, if you don't have some crazy thing, and it's like, well, those guys who had those crazy things, they must have been having a great time,
right?
And it sounds like they were, but then you don't see the other side of it,
right?
That it slowly gets out of control, and there's not a balance there.
Well, and it might be out of control that whole time, you know. I mean, I would say a lot of times, you know, it's probably pretty damaging on relationships. It's pretty damaging just overall in life with how well you're really dealing with, you know, perhaps your responsibilities, or maybe what you truly want, you know. I mean, it's, to some respect, you might really think like, this is a lifestyle that I want to live forever. But then on the other hand, maybe, you know, when you go to bed or at certain times you think maybe this isn't. Or maybe, I wanted to stop and I didn't. That's scary, you know.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of not a lot, but I think of another thing that when you hear and tell those stories that people don't understand is the damage potential.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, oh yeah, I went into the ditch, haha, you know, telling these stories with your buddies at the bar, but that story could have easily been at your funeral. Oh, I just went off the ditch and flipped, you know what I mean? Like the damage potential that comes behind with those stories that we fail to actually look at.
Yeah.
Or you hit an oncoming car, you know.
Yeah.
That's just a step away, really.
And sometimes I wonder, if we drink as individuals to somewhat cope.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not always to cope, I would say, I would say at times, sometimes, you truly enjoy to have a few beers and have a good time, mm-hmm. It's not, I don't think it's like inherently in itself indicative of like, oh, he has problems he's coping with, right?
Yeah.
I don't think that. No. However, I would say excessive drinking regularly may at times be a form of coping. Mm-hmm. And if that is your only source, that becomes maybe perhaps a poor way of coping as an individual. Mm-hmm. If you take that to like a community level, and you see communities engaging in excessive drinking on a regular basis, and not having really many other outlets for potential stressors, I would say that, as a community, you've developed a coping problem, mm-hmm. And that's influential,
Definitely.
Living in communities or cultures where that's a part of the expected coping. One, I would say, drives you toward that, mm-hmm. or is heavily influential in that, as well as when there are true problems with you as an individual, there isn't like a contrast with a healthy community to say, oh, this is a problem. It more just says, oh, I'm just like everybody else in my community. This is what I know. This is where I grew up. Blah, blah, blah. Put factor on factor on factor. And the next thing you know.
And they hide it with this big facade of fun. You know
right.
what I mean? It's
right.
It's fun.
It's just fun.
Yeah.
Well, and can you imagine trying to
it's interesting.
Quit, like you were saying, you quit for a week, but then your friends call you up on the weekend, and if you're quitting,
and you're ostracized,
then they have to think, well, he's saying that what I'm doing is wrong, right? Because if he's not joining it, he's saying, I'm going to quit. This is a problem. Then, well, I drink way more than he does. Yeah. So that can actually turn your own community against you for sticking out, because you're the standard that they don't want to think about. They don't want to think about how they're not able to quit if they've been wanting to, or that even if they're not actively thinking about it. You got to wonder how much harder it is when your support group is involved with the thing that you struggle with, and they're not actively, trying to find a solution for that. Like, that's just their go-to. Actually, like you're talking about community.
That's funny you say that. I know a guy, and I won't name like any names or anything, but I know a guy essentially, and his he had some friends and family that drank to excess regularly. Mm-hmm. And he pretty much said, like, I'm sick of this, dude. Every time we all get together, like, it just gets stupid. It just gets crazy. People get mad. People are rude. You just can't. It ruins our experiences. Mm-hmm. And he says, I'm sick of it. And really now, like, on a regular basis, like, a lot of his family members will say, like, we'll just call him Steve. His name's not Steve, but they call him Steve. They're like, oh, better get your suit on. Steve's here, and like really makes fun of him as if he's like a total lame.
Yeah,
but he's not. Like no, they're like, but like his family.
Yeah.
Like, true family was like, oh, Steve's here. Like, better, blah 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 blah. Or like, oh, party's over. Steve's here.
Yeah,
bed at 9.
Passive aggressive.
And really, he's just like, guys, if people could just not, if like half of this group could not get blacked out drunk every time we get together, that would be a lot more fun. But really, and like, even though like it sounds ridiculous and it's like kind of funny to laugh at, like they truly do like make him like they truly are kind of like you suck.
Yeah,
pretty much.
Really,
passive aggressively, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, totally. Yeah, it's interesting. It's a lot of barriers to kind of getting your life to a place where you want it to be.
Yeah, and what's harder, like quitting drinking or something, or finding new friends? Like, can you imagine how hard that is? Like thinking about, oh, I can't really hang out with this friend because there's going to be a temptation, or I can't really,
I think more than friends too. It's like you know, bigger than that. Like your
Yeah.
disconnect from your roots. You know.
Oh yeah.
From your culture, from
Yeah.
what you know.
Yeah.
You know, that's hard.
Yeah, it's like all my friends drank,
Mm-hmm.
Right.
and relatives and people I worked with.
Did you tell them like, hey, I'm gonna try to quit? Did they react to that?
No,
or?
I just did it, you know,
Yeah.
and it's probably why it would only last like a week. you
Right.
know. But at this time, I had noticed that, you know, every time I would drink, it would start out as having fun,
Mm-hmm.
but I couldn't stop, you know, at that level, and would go, you know, until very drunk, you know, and pass out somewhere at home, you know, usually. But you know, and that's when all the crazy side comes out, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And
And I imagine you're, because at this point, your daughter's probably around 7.
yeah,
Your son's a couple years younger than her?
yes,
Yeah, so he's 7 and 5.
yeah,
Responsibilities and your involvement in their lives are increasing, and that's
Yeah.
probably causing some difficulties in the home as well as with just like yourself, not to be like all weird, but like kind of your own relationship with yourself
yes,
is becoming difficult.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. You know, I wasn't really aware of that at that time, but yeah, you know, the kids were doing good. The son was in Pop Warner, and my daughter, you know, had dance classes, you know, a couple times a week, and so busy, you know, very busy lifestyle. And this was the start of, you know, when I started putting my wife through a lot that I didn't realize at the time, you know, because she didn't drink, you know, she didn't party, and you know, worried, you know, it's like, man, wonder what time, where's Sean at? What time will he be home, you know? And I was off doing my thing, and yeah, so she got to see a lot of the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde effect, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and the kids too, you know, a little bit. But as things progressed and stuff, or my life progressed, I should say.
Right.
I worked at another for the government, and which was a really fun job.
Mm-hmm. What were you doing?
I worked for Fish and Game,
Oh, cool.
Oh, nice.
and had a lot of fun, you know. Just a very interesting job, and would work on their boat and boat motors and stuff like in the winter part, and then but would be out in the field, you know, on the one of the rivers here, you know, mainly the Kenai River, and I did a lot of test netting and whatnot, and creel surveys, and it was just a lot of fun. But I did continue to drink, you know, after work and on weekends. I thought maybe, you know, like changing my job. I just was kind of bored with it, you know. So I moved on to something different. And it did, you know, it wasn't near as bad as it was, but it was still there. And then, you know, it didn't take long, you know, till I got back to where I usually was. I never drank at work, and I was always showed up, you know. And yeah, I was always proud of myself for that too. I used to give some people shit sometimes, you know, for not. It's like, you showed up, you know, I made it to work, you know, what the heck, you can't make it to work?
Mm-hmm.
And once again, part of that Alaska spirit, you know. And but it eventually slowed down, you know, after I think I was there like 15 years.
Oh, wow.
It just slowed down, and I was, for some reason, looking for another change, kind of, you know.
So at this point,
I regret that change, but
you're approaching like almost 40, and you don't really have much legal involvement.
no
No? So-
DUIs.
Okay.
Matter of fact, I have perfect driving record and absolutely no criminal record.
Oh, wow.
And the thing with the alcohol when I was a juvenile in Oregon got
sealed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
got destroyed when I
Yeah.
turned 18.
Yeah.
And yeah, so absolutely perfect. I took a job up on the slope for money, basically.
Yeah.
And so then I thought, man, you know, that's pretty good. You know, it was fun, and definitely in again with another work hard, you know, play hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
And
some stories about the slope.
oh yeah, and yeah, so I essentially became.
Were you on Were you on like a 2-week on, 2-week
Yeah,
off kind of
exactly.
thing? Okay. How was that?
You know, I had it was.
Sorry.
Yeah, it was actually really hard on me
Sure.
to be away from my family.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when you're up there for a little while, you know that you can call and stuff, cell phone
Not the same.
use. No, but and then even they've got their own lives going
Yeah.
on. You know,
Doesn't stop
and-
because you're gone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's what I noticed about like when I moved up here. It was like moved up here from Montana. I'd go back home, and for some reason you think everything's gonna just kind of be the same, and you go back and
Yeah.
you're like, well, life really moved on without me. You know?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's an interesting thing. You leave somewhere, or you're gone from somewhere where you were really involved, and
Mhm.
everybody's lives just keep moving on.
Yeah, they
It's
do.
an interesting thing. So.
And yeah, I noticed I would get less and less phone calls,
Yeah.
and or if I'd call, it's like, oh yeah, we're doing that. Oh, I gotta go. I'll call you later.
Mhm.
And so actually, I felt very alone up there
Yeah. Yeah.
a lot of the times.
I understand that.
And but I was good. I didn't drink, for 2 weeks, and
Yeah.
but for 2 weeks when at home, I drank every single day.
Oh yeah. So on the slope, I don't really know a lot of because we have in North Dakota there's like the Bakken oil field, but I think a lot of people. I think that's a little bit not near as isolated, at least, as the North Slope is. I think people can play hard well still working on their hitch in North Dakota. I'm not for certain on that, but I think you can play hard well on your hitch. I think it's harder for people to play hard on the slope. But do people generally, like, is there a whole lot of like drug and alcohol abuse in your experience? And obviously it's not like we're going to characterize the entire slope or
No.
what that means. I'm just trying to wonder what that is like if somebody...
You hear a few stories,
But not
but
much.
I never saw any
Yeah,
drinking
okay.
stuff. I know that they do have people, that end up getting caught, tested positive for drug use.
Mhm.
And
Yeah, because I think in North Dakota, if you might know
yeah.
better, Aaron, but I think in North Dakota, some people, since it's not very isolated at all, I think some people can be on their hitch and play hard, not on the exact, like, not on the rig or whatever,
yeah.
throughout their hitch on a somewhat
'Cause
regular
a lot
basis.
of those rigs are like really close to certain towns.
Yeah.
And those towns have grown exponentially since the boom. So
Right.
it's a lot of oil workers.
So you can work
living
your 12
there.
hours and go party at the bar and hopefully make
Yeah.
it back in time. To,
There's
Yeah.
more.
Yeah.
There's more bars in those certain towns than there are any other establishment.
Yeah.
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 And they're full all the time.
yeah.
Let's wait till they have McDonald's bars.
Oh, they got McDonald's.
Oh, yeah. No, I was saying that's a double establishment, and there's no escape.
So, okay, you're up, but it's hard.
Yeah. I'd come
The
back.
kids are getting old at this point, too.
Oh yeah, and they're all in high school and doing very well in sports. I don't know. I kind of lost a little bit of connection with my own family. I didn't really realize it at the time, but actually, I lost a lot of connection, I should say.
Mhm.
I just, come back home and I feel like, man, everything's just rocking and rolling, and I just kind of stand back and look, and during this time, I found out later here that my wife actually, and I actually felt it,
Mhm.
my wife actually enjoyed it more when I wasn't at home. And
Just more peaceful.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and of course all that did was ended up fueling my drinking.
As you felt more disconnected.
Yeah.
Was it? Do you think that's something that you could have talked about, or do you think maybe like the lack of communication made it more difficult because you're like, I feel this way, but I feel like I can't talk about it, because it doesn't seem fair. But then it's not fair the other way, so it's just kind of something that you quietly dealt with. Is that how it felt?
I brought it up a few times, and it just kind of nothing became of it,
Kind of like, what can we do? It's like,
Yeah.
what can we do? I don't know how to deal with this kind of thing.
Yeah, and I didn't press it very hard, I just kind of, I still go out, to the sporting events and stuff, but I definitely felt isolated,
Yeah.
and alone, and so that it might.
What's your connection what's your connection like with your kids at this point?
Pretty decent. I just started to kind of be a little bit more disconnected from them even. And it just, they're so busy at that age, and then, at a vehicle, cell phone, this and that, and which I understand too. I mean, I was a kid once also.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're not really interested. They're interested in their peer
Yeah,
relationships.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and
And
there's so
that's
much
why I
going
asked
on.
that question, because it seems like it'd be easy for them. Not easy, but like, just kind of in the midst of all that, like in being in high school, like, oh, dad's up on the slope, and oh, dad's home for 2 weeks, and it's just kind of one of those things that just...
Yeah. Oh, I got to go to soccer and basketball.
Yeah,
And turn in my
let's go.
report and.
Yeah, I think back about high school sometimes, and it's just like, man, I was so. This sounds terrible, but it's really pretty true. I mean, there's an extent here, but I was so indifferent to my parents' lives.
Definitely.
Like at that
Yeah.
point, I was just
Oh,
like,
yeah.
you got
Absolutely.
food, you got. I mean, you're giving me some food, you give me
Yeah.
some gas money, cool, peace. Like,
Yeah.
like see you guys in 5 years. It's like, and really, that's what we, as I've taken a number of psych classes, it's just that's normal. Really, I
I'm
mean,
sure it is
children,
normal,
teenagers at that time are heavily invested in peer relationships. I mean, that is like one of their sole focuses.
Yeah, how many kids that age do you see that are just walking around with their parents all day? Or,
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, not
none.
many.
So,
Yeah,
oh,
they're
man, I
growing
gotta hang out
up.
with my mom.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Now
man,
I'm like,
I can't
I'm going
hang
out
out
for
with my
coffee.
mom.
Yeah, I remember it just being a huge burden of like my parents being like, "Oh, Eric,
Family movie
you
night."
have to. We're gonna all watch a movie together next week on Tuesday." And I'm like dreading Tuesday. Oh man, gotta hang out with my mom, my dad. Yeah, and you look back now and you're thankful, but now anyway, yeah. So they're probably thinking like, "Oh, Dad's got a good job. That's cool. I can buy new cleats or buy cleats."
Yeah.
Or,
Yeah, they wait.
Yeah.
I'd come home and say, you want to go to Wilderness Way? I'll buy you a jacket.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, I'll hang out with you I got like an hour, Dad.
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
like, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
But
So you mentioned kind of feeling isolated. Do you think you started to withdraw from your friends at all, or did you still have connections in your life, or did you kind of start breaking away and kind of isolating because of the feelings?
I did still have friends, that I hung out with, and but that was about to change because I ended up the company that I worked for got into a dispute with British Petroleum, obviously about money. More money that they wanted for the contract, and BP said no, go ahead and leave. So that job came to an end, and so I was at home, and actually didn't work for a couple years. And
Is
that.
your wife working?
Yeah, my wife is a teacher, and she went back to school.
I imagine that was really hard for you.
Yeah. Yeah, it was.
Because it sounds like to me, you didn't drink at work, and that was, and maybe this is inaccurate, those were some of the main, like, almost guarantees of when you weren't going to drink. Outside of that, it was
Yes.
pretty well fair game.
Yes.
So at this point, it's all fair game.
It is.
Yeah.
Game's on.
Yeah.
And it was.
Yeah.
Man, I just started drinking more, drinking.
And I imagine your relationship at this point, as far as like some like real authentic connection, is starting to deteriorate.
Yes. Very
Which
fast.
is just making, I mean, it sounds like we could just get one thing leading to another.
Yeah.
So you feel disconnected at the slope, and then you're not working and it's all fair game, and then you're disconnected from your wife, and pretty soon you are pretty dang isolated. I mean, those factors that are going to kind of protect you from deteriorating further are just falling by the...
Yep, that's exactly what
week.
happened.
Yeah. Wow.
I'd see one of my friends every once in a while at the liquor store, and to use one of their words, they said, "Man, I haven't seen you in a while. You're such a recluse, You're so reclusive." And I thought, yeah, well, see you later. And yeah, I definitely was isolated, and I did it myself, and it's just a progression of the disease that I have. And I didn't really know any of this stuff about isolation and connection. Knew absolutely nothing.
Right. Right.
What I knew was, if I didn't want to deal with any emotions, drink alcohol. And that ends up escalating my drinking and whatnot. So I ended up being arrested by the Alaska State Troopers for a big incident I had involving fighting with people close to me and a firearm. And so yeah, off to jail I went, and never been in jail ever. Like I had a perfect
record.
Yeah, no criminal
sounds like,
record, absolutely perfect driving record.
And then it all just kind of came to a head.
How I never got a DUI is, I don't know how I didn't get it.
I just couldn't see you in the ditch.
Yeah.
Just got behind the trees.
Yeah, because I definitely have had done a lot of crazy stuff.
Yeah.
And but my time had come, and went in there, and since I was had no record and whatnot, the charges got lowered eventually after about my 10th time to court, and I could have got bailed out. I didn't have the money to bail myself out, but my dad offered to, and I was so disgusted with myself that I just told him no. I said,
Had you felt this kind of shame before? Let's maybe not a ton of time on it, but what was shame like throughout this? I mean, not just the arrest, but like, what was your experience with shame, with thinking I am, not necessarily that I'm doing bad things, but that I as a person am bad?
Yeah.
What was your experience with that?
I definitely thought that. Actually, through my whole early teens, up to my, up to this point, I felt that I felt unworthy of good things for some reason, you know.
Yeah.
I had no idea why. I had a feeling, you know, like I wasn't good enough. So I had to work extra hard, and I did. You know, there was actually a lot of people that worked with me that didn't want to go and work with me, not because I was a mean person or anything to them, but because, you know, it's like I didn't take breaks. You know, go, 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 go. And I even had, when I worked for the state, I was brought into my supervising biologist's office 3 different times and told to slow down. And I thought, why is that? You know, tell me that I'm working too hard, you know? And yeah, and he told me, you know, it's not a competition. And I said, it's not? He said, it is to me.
Do you think that was like the flip side of, you know, feeling like you're not good enough? You felt like you had to work extra hard.
Yes.
Right? But then when you were done with the work and you couldn't be constantly proving, you know, hey guys, I'm totally kicking butt all the time, you know, did you feel like because you weren't doing something, like especially when you didn't have a job, did that just really bring in the feeling of like, I can't work super hard and just, you know, blow people's expectations up?
I felt absolutely worthless. I really did. I felt like a burden. And it was at this time that and it took me a long time to realize, you know, what I had done. But I felt so bad about myself that I felt that I didn't deserve a nice, happy family. And my wife, I just pushed her away. I really did, big time.
A little self-sabotage?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I guarantee you that. And anyways, when I was in jail, I got 90 days, so by the time everything was over and done with, I only had to do, you know,
Did you detox in jail?
Yeah, I was in detox cell number 4.
Wow.
They had to put me in DT1, which is a 1-person cell when I first was in there, because I was too rowdy.
Yeah.
And
rowdy.
yeah, it's like cement floor and that's it.
Yeah.
I was like, oh man. And yeah, that was a rude awakening, going to the jail system at Wildwood. And so I didn't have, I think I had like 3 more weeks and 90 days would be out. But, and I had been transferred over. When I was in there, I spent a week in the detox part. And then I was transferred to Building 10, which is the main prison part. And so my first 2 roommates, when I was in there, the one never would say what he did. The other one was in there for first-degree murder. And yeah, that was a little different.
Yeah. That's got to do something to your identity. I mean, I could be wrong here, but like your self-identity, you know what I mean? You're sitting there, and this is just me speculating, obviously, so tell me what I'm wrong, if I'm wrong. You're sitting there, like, you know, laying above this guy who's a first-degree murderer and thinking to yourself, I'm more or less on par with this person. I mean, we're in the same place, not saying it's exactly the same sentence, but we're doing the same daily activities. I'm living the same life as this person. At some point, does that kind of absorb into your own personal identity, just to yourself, not necessarily?
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually took on a little bit of a criminal, you know, element come out of me. Not that I had been a criminal, you know, before, you know, so to speak, you know.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, you know, I hung out with a couple of characters in there that I didn't even know, you know, that they were gang related. And but you know, it's actually, I had some very funny times in there that I hadn't laughed in so long. And then I also had, you know, some of the worst times in my life. So it's a very different atmosphere, you know. You have to be on your guard, you know, big time. And but yet it actually was it could have been a lot worse, I guess is what I'm trying to say. You know, you mind your own business. You know, if you're looking for trouble, you know, you'll definitely find it. You know, you stick your nose where it doesn't belong, and you're probably going to get hit in the nose. But when I got out, I could not go back to my house. I couldn't, you know, I couldn't get my vehicle. I couldn't get anything. I couldn't go to any bank accounts. So I basically had nothing. And my daughter picked me up. She wasn't living at the house at that time. She had, you know, was moved out on her own, and but lived with a friend. So I went and stayed with her for like a month. And my dad had lent me some money, so I had a little money, and that was a very, very awkward feeling, and very strange, you know, not having access to any of the stuff that I had had. And my house and stuff, it was all paid for. Didn't owe anything on it. And I was really proud of that. It was something that I wanted to do. And it just felt, you know, really bad that I could no longer go there. And but when I was in jail, you know, I thought, well, man, I had you know, didn't use tobacco or alcohol, you know, and there's definitely a lot of drugs in there, a lot. And but I didn't want to use heroin or meth, so was no big issue for me with that. But I had thought, man, talked on the phone with my dad, which he lived outside. He'd moved out, you know, kind of retire, and he was telling me, well, you know, that's good, man. That you, at least one good thing of it, you know, is that you don't drink. You quit drinking. And I had that mindset, and but I got out, and
Drinking within a week.
I was released at 8 a.m.
Drinking it.
And
11.
Or you just guessed
my
yeah.
Oh, I bet it happened quick.
My daughter, the first stop was in. We were heading back out to Sterling. I stopped in downtown Kenai and got me some tobacco, and then made it all the way to right outside of Soldotna to Big John's. And I needed to go into the store and get a few things. I didn't tell her, you know, it was the liquor store I was going to. But yeah, I went.
You came out and she knew it, yeah?
Yeah, well, yeah, I got it in my hands, you know, 12-pack of beer and a fifth of whiskey.
Was she just kind of like...
Yeah, she's, Dad. I'm like, you know, I just, you know, look where I came from, you know. It's just going to be, you know, for the night here, you know, I need something to relax with. And yeah, that's all it, I mean, it was bam. Yeah. But yeah, I was shit-faced drunk by noon. The very day I was released. And of course, you know, stipulation of my release was no alcohol, you know, a bunch of other stuff. But yeah, that didn't last very long at all. And then I drank every single day that I was with my daughter for a month.
And you said she was living with a friend.
Yeah.
So they, I mean, they're kind of like, this is not going well.
Yeah, I was, I rented a room from them, that's what I did. And then the room became no longer available.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, I understand. And, you know, it just came down to it. I ended up in a homeless shelter out in, almost across the street from Wildwood. And because there was nothing that I could rent, you know, in 24 hours or whatever. And, but that was actually a very, very humbling experience. But it's also a faith-based place. And it actually was one of the best things that had happened to me in a long time. In order to stay there, you had to go to a Bible study every night of the week, you know, and you had to be up at 6 a.m., lights out at 10 p.m., and very structured, you know, just coming out of jail, you know, it was, that's what it reminded me of. Except, you know, that you could leave during the day. And I ended up doing, you know, pretty well there for a while, going to church and everything. I hadn't gone to church since I had lived up here. I had thought that, you know, well, all the church and stuff that I had going to a Catholic school, you know, I thought, yeah, that must be good for, you know, a while.
Yeah.
And so I always had a very strong belief in God, but kind of just pushed him off to the side, you know, except obviously if somebody, you know, something bad happened to somebody or whatever, you know, I'd start praying. But I ended up getting kicked out of there for alcohol, believe it or not. Yeah, it seems they frown on, you know, you coming in there and with a fifth of vodka and drinking it, and then stumbling around all over the place.
Yeah.
It was I could only imagine what I looked like.
Right.
And so I was kicked out for a week, and went and stayed at a hostel that I didn't even know was in Sterling. Stayed there, drank the whole time I was there. I went back to that place, and got kicked out again for drinking, and went and stayed with a couple people I'd met there in Kenai for a few days. Then I went back. Then I ran into a friend of mine, a childhood friend. We'd actually gone to kindergarten together even. I just, we kind of drifted apart. And he picked me up, said, man, I'll get you out of that place. You come live with me. So I went to live in Kasilof, south of Kasilof, off of Kaholu. And beautiful view right off the bluff. But, you know, he was working and working at a mine, you know, it's basically like working on a slope, you know, gone for a couple weeks and back for a couple weeks. And so I just, all I did was drink, you know, it had just got so worse. I knew at the time that my marriage was over. Then I got served papers. You know, I just kept thinking that, you know, I can fix this somehow, you know. But all the time, you know, just drinking more and more. And, yeah, I got served papers from the process server. And, you know, for being sued, sued for a divorce from my wife. And, yeah, it just went really downhill from there. I'd ended up just all over the place. I left a path of destruction from Kenai to Clam Gulch. I was in all kinds of fist fights. Just didn't care, you know. I used to fight a lot when I was a kid. I was scrawny, so I learned how to fight decent. But I had put most of that aside, you know, for all that time. And I just came to, it was also another release for me. And I'd actually forgot how fun it was, I guess, kind of in a way. Yeah, in a sick way, I guess I should say. But, yeah, I even got in a fight right outside the Kenai Library, you know, that I picked. And I usually never picked fights. But, you know, and then friends got mad at me, you know. It was like, man, the police department's right there, you idiot. You know, you're going to get us all busted. And, which I would have went straight to jail, you know, being intoxicated and fighting. And ended up, not that day, another day, ended up getting my leg broke on the Kenai beach. I thought it would be fun to fight a few people. And was doing okay until I never saw the guy that tackled me and just folded my right leg. And so I had to go to the hospital, the ER, and then was admitted. I had 6 different fractures and breaks in my tibia and fibia. Broke my tibia plateau, which is what your knee rests on.
Mm.
And
Yikes.
yeah, so they had to do some reconstructive surgery. 2 of the best orthopedic surgeons they have down here. Another one flew in from Anchorage. They'd actually told me that the surgeon had been doing it for 20 years, and that mine was tied for the worst.
Yikes.
So I was like, oh, that's great. And so I've got 2 big titanium plates in it, 11 screws, and I was on crutches for a long, long time, and for months, and I was able to get around pretty good, but obviously drinking like that and stuff, I was told that, yeah, you'd throw your crutches down and said you didn't need those damn crutches, and was walking around, and which I wasn't supposed to do, and falling down, etc. And you would think that would be, it was a very serious break, and I was told that I was lucky, that that I don't have to use crutches forever.
Mm-hmm.
And so you would think that would be enough for somebody to say, okay, you've got to get your shit together. And, I thought that for probably, an hour or 2. And, yeah, as soon as I got out of the hospital, I was off to the races again, drinking. And just continued. I did nothing but drink. I knew what time liquor stores opened, which ones, which one was the earliest. It's pretty bad when you can go to a liquor store, during the day and buy enough booze to think that you can make it through, but I never did. I'd always be right there, waiting for them to open. And then I'd have to go back again to another liquor store because they would deny you, which I didn't, wasn't used to that. And so it just kept going like that, and obviously the, relationship with my kids, my son refused to talk to me when I was in jail and when I was out even, and actually to this very day, still won't talk to me at all. And my daughter, had had enough of me. It's just, you can imagine, the burden that it is, and embarrassment, and so I ended up just drinking and drinking and drinking, and then on June 11th, my birthday, I was, me and my friend were partying on the beach, drive there, just down from his house, drive onto the beach, and that would be South Coho Beach, and drive up to North Coho Beach, which is right at the mouth of Kasilof. And just dinking around, having fun, drinking, I should say, not dinking around, but drinking around, I should say, I guess. And went back and forth to the house, like 3 or 4 times, cruising up and down the beach. It was fun, beautiful day. And then he talked me into going to the liquor store before they closed there in Kasilof. And so I drove him to the liquor store. He was denied, because they could tell he'd been drinking. I went in, and which I already knew, but I just went in for him. And nope, And so drove back, decided to, to take the beach back. And on the way back, 45 miles an hour, ran into a big ditch that somebody had dug, and almost came to a complete stop. And of course, driving on the beach and stuff, it's no seat belts, and totaled my truck. It barely made it up off the beach. I went right up somebody's driveway, and it died right at their house.
Yeah.
And lady came out. She was all pissed off, thinking that we were just dinking around or whatever. What the hell are you doing on my property? And her jaw dropped. Her eyes got huge when she saw us. We were both covered in blood. I had hit the steering wheel and actually bent the steering wheel like 20 degrees in my truck. Hit it with my face and the windshield. My friend it had knocked him out, and he had come to when I was coming up off the beach, and he was still kind of bewildered, by what had happened. And I felt, okay. I was trying to restart it and drive home, and he asked for an ambulance and stuff, and the lady was right there, and I said, well, yeah, go ahead and call an ambulance. So naturally, a trooper shows up before that, and which I had lost my crutches. I couldn't walk without. I wasn't supposed to, and they had felt when we hit, I'd put them in the back of the truck. There was nothing in the back of my truck anymore, and it was all smashed up. And, just it was total. And he asked what had happened and stuff, and then the ambulance came and took us both. I went ahead or they put me in it. And we were on our way back, and halfway back to Soldotna, all of a sudden my back just hurt really bad, and so I told them. So they stopped and put me on a board with a brace and all this other stuff. And we got to the emergency room, wheeled us in and stuff, and I asked to look at a mirror, and I was like, gee, because my face was all swollen and just blood everywhere. My friend was the same, I was trying to see if I looked as bad as he did, and actually looked worse. But yeah, we were in the emergency room. We were both together in their trauma room, I guess it's called. And they took me down, had me all like a whole body scan, and sure enough, my back was in really bad shape. And by now, I knew something was wrong because it hurt like hell. And my friend, he broke his jaw and a bunch of facial bones and stuff, and they ended up medevacing him to Anchorage. And they admitted me into the hospital. And they came and talked to me about what was wrong with my back, and I had broke one of the vertebrae and like a fin part on the spine. I forgot what it's called, and but the vertebrae or the disc had like the back of it exploded, and it went into my spinal canal, and I didn't realize how lucky I was that I didn't, wasn't going to end up paralyzed or something. And but they ended up, I told them to do whatever they could do because I could not manage the pain at all. And so I had to wait a day, and then they had I had surgery, another surgery. And I think I was in there for like a week this time also. The last time I was in there for like a week.
In the hospital.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not drinking at this point.
No, not.
So you're withdrawing.
Yeah.
And it's pretty bad.
Yeah.
I mean, you've been drinking heavily for
Yeah.
quite a while now.
Yeah.
And people know. I mean, in the hospital, people can tell.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's
And
one of the
they-
first things they do is take your blood alcohol level, and check it. And,
But I mean, at this point in the hospital, they are aware that you are going through some heavy
yeah.
detox.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, they gave me some kind of medicine for everything when I was in there.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I forgot a major major thing. When I was in the ER, the two troopers came in and with a search warrant to draw blood, and which I went ahead and let them. I mean, they were going to get it one way or the other,
Mm-hmm.
and but the nurse kept telling me how how happy she was, that I was just allowing them to do it. And I said, yeah. And one of the troopers, which I didn't even recognize him at the beach part, was the same trooper that arrested me in Sterling.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, yeah, his exact words, because I said, oh, I recognize you. Yeah, and he told me, Sean, what the are you doing? And I just looked at him and I said, and just shook my head. Kind of made it sink in,
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah, hear somebody say your name and really get that.
yeah, and he knows,
Kinda know
what else
you.
had happened.
What are you doing? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of sounds like, at least maybe I'm like projecting here a little bit, but it sounds a little bit like you're better than this was also kind of implied, or like this isn't-
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly,
You're like,
because kind of thought it was a fluke what had happened before, when I had went to jail, with no record and et cetera. And we'd actually talked on the way in there. It's a long ride from Sterling. Yeah, he was a very nice trooper. But so I didn't think much of about that. And but when I got out of surgery and stuff, my daughter had come to see me, and she goes, "Yeah, Dad, did you look at that paper that they gave you?" And I said, when I was down there when I got it, I said, no, I haven't looked at it. I didn't read the whole thing or nothing. But I was also being charged, which I didn't even know it, with assault, most likely. And I forgot the exact wording on it. So I went out. I didn't think much of it. But yeah, when I got released from the hospital and stuff, I had to wear like this clamshell looking thing, on my upper torso, on the front and back, and it looks funny and very awkward, and so I had that and crutches walking around, with that big thing on my leg, it just. Oh man, you would think that would be enough, also, for me to quit drinking, or or to get some help or whatever. And once again, it wasn't. I definitely started drinking again as soon as I was out. I immediately was drinking heavily. Just 1 or 2 days, and it was like right back to where I left off.
And were you were on crutches at this point again?
Oh yeah,
Or
crutches.
what's your physical life like?
It really sucked.
Yeah.
Couldn't hardly do
Okay.
anything.
Okay.
And then to complicate matters, I'd get so smashed that I'd feel like I didn't need to use my crutches.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Fall off the porch, off the deck.
Yeah.
I did a lot of falling, big time. And Yeah, it was just a mess. And my friend finally had enough of it and told me, you know, man, yeah, I'll take you someplace, you know, but you got to leave like now.
Really? You were out in because he left with your friend, right?
Yeah.
That you had met, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, he said, told me that, what he said was that, you know, Sean, I don't want to watch you kill yourself. I don't want to watch you die.
Wow.
You know, he had lost another good friend to addiction. And I knew that guy too, and that was sad. But so I thought, yeah, whatever, you know. And I went to, ended up dropping me off at the friendship mission because I couldn't even get a hold of anybody, you know, that quick, or you know, try to rent a house or a room or whatever. Which I'm sure that would have worked out real great, you know. Show up, it's like, man, you can't even walk into your doggone apartment. You know what the heck? You want to rent it? Yeah, I was in sad shape. And they have a no alcohol policy. You have to go to Bible study there. I enjoyed that, going to church. But it didn't last, you know. I think I was there probably 3 days. And I drank, you know, I'd hide it and go upstairs in my room and at night. And I came home. How I got kicked out is I showed up there from coming back from town, and I had, like I said, I was wearing that big clamshell-looking brace, you know, and yeah, I'd stuck a pint of vodka in it, and was walking in there right in front of the owners, you know, the people that run it, and it goes boink right on the floor. It was plastic, but it's like right there in front of everybody, and I'm like, oh shoot, you know. And they said, all right, you're out of here. And so I was able to get a hold of a couple guys that I knew, and they said, yeah, you can come over and stay with us for a little bit till you figure out what you're going to do. And so they came and picked me up, and I just went on a complete drunk. I remember walking into their place, and that is, you know, just very few memories.
Really?
Yeah, I was taking taxis to go to the liquor store and stuff. I remember doing that a couple of times, but it seems like, you know, like just a day or two. Mm-hmm. But, you know, I was actually there for a while, a lot longer than that.
And they were probably thinking this guy's got to go.
Yeah, and naturally they both don't drink, you know. They had a vehicle, but they said, no, you have to find it your own way. Mm-hmm. You know, so I was like, yeah, sure. Alaska cab, doo-doo-doo-doo-doo.
Yeah.
And, but I remember more than one occasion I'd end up buying like 2/5 of whatever was on sale. And one of my memories is I drank 1/5 in 3 drinks.
Jeez.
I had it down to no longer than 10 minutes.
Wow.
And would start on the second one. But eventually what had happened is it led up to me being out down on a gravel road, laying face down. And, you know, they thought I was dead or something. You know, they rolled me over, I guess. I don't remember any of it, of course. And there's big mud puddles and stuff all around. You know, I was covered in gravel, and I mean, you name it, stuck to my face and everything. Yeah, it was a sad event, but yeah, they called an ambulance.
Really?
Yeah, and back to the hospital I went, to the ER, and my blood alcohol level. They don't know exactly how long I was out there, but the hospital told me it was, I can't remember, it was .49 something. It was just like right at 5, almost 5, 0.5 I should say. And then, you know, they had to hook up a whole bunch of IVs to me, and banana bag, they call one of them. Mm-hmm. Just a whole bunch of stuff. And I don't even remember what time I got there. I didn't even know how I got there. But I know when I woke up, I just kind of have vague memories of it. And I remember the doctor coming over and a nurse. and just having a little talk with me because of how many times I've been in there. You know, and of course I've had alcohol in my system every single time.
And a lot of it.
And a lot.
Not like, yeah.
It's not like a couple drinks.
Right, right.
And they told me they were afraid, you know, the next time I come in, they'd be pulling the sheet over my head.
Right.
You know, or, you know, I'd hurt myself so bad I wouldn't be able to walk again. And at that point, I just was, I knew myself that if I didn't do something right then about it, that I would be dead. Still is not a doubt in my mind. I would have died doing something under the influence of
the
alcohol.
next week, 2, 3 weeks.
Yeah, I wouldn't have given myself.
Soon,
I stretched it out to like a month.
But
you know what? I think I'd be pretty lucky if I made it 7 more days. You know, and just the way I can act on it and stuff. You know, could be shot and killed by the troopers. Could be, you know, somehow, you know, get a hold of a car and crash into somebody or something. You know, it just was a complete chaotic mess. And that's just some of those people who used to say, it's Sean in a shit show. And it definitely was. So I told them, I said, yes. They asked me, you know, would you like help? You know, we really think you could really use it. And I said, yeah.
And this is a nurse?
Yeah, and a doctor. Both.
And a doctor, yeah.
Yeah, they took the, you know, ER doctors are really busy, you know.
Sure.
Took the time and to go over some stuff with me, and I said, yes, I said, I can't quit. And I agree that, you know, I'd probably be pulling a sheet over
and
my
up
head.
until this point, were there a whole lot of instances of you, and I mean like a couple months prior to the event that we're discussing, were there a lot of times where you're like, I can't quit, I'm going to go to jail or die soon? Like, was this an epiphany, or was it a mixture, kind of like, okay, now I feel the same way I did a week ago, now there's just kind of help in front of me? Like, had you been feeling kind of like this I need help feeling before, but this time there was just like, it was available and it was accessible? I guess, were you really more at rock bottom any more than you were a week before?
Oh, yes, most definitely.
Okay.
You know, I thought I really wasn't, I knew that I couldn't quit, but I wasn't done, I guess is the best way to say it.
And for the first time in what seems to have been a while, you're probably at least more sober than you've been in a long time.
Oh, yeah.
They're talking to you.
Yeah, most definitely, you know. I can't remember this long of a period, you know, since junior high school. And that makes, you know, boggles my mind, you know, just to think about it. It's a long time. And I never had any DUIs, you know, never had any arrests, perfect driving record. And as I say in some of the meetings, they had a big yet when people would walk in and say, I've never been arrested, you know, no DUIs. And I say, yet. And,
sure.
But yeah, everything hit within a year. And, but yeah, I told them I still don't even know who it was. There was a representative from Serenity House showed up. And kind of filled me in, you know, and I vaguely remember any of it. But they said so you had said like, yeah, I'll take some help, and so then the ER doc and nurse probably brought somebody over from Serenity House. Yes,
or somebody was there.
Yeah, they made a phone call.
Okay.
And so I'm not sure. I'm sure I was probably in the hospital for at least 24 hours or something. I don't even know, to be honest. But I do know they told me that they had a new detox center. It's called Care Transitions. And they said that they would make it, you know, a lot better way to detox than just doing it by yourself at home or something. And at my level, there was
You risk death at
exactly.
your level.
Yeah.
At that point.
It's one of the only. I actually consider alcohol a drug. It's one of the only drugs like that. Doing that, you can die from.
Yeah, I think. I mean, I'm not an expert in this, but I think like benzodiazepines and alcohol are two of the most risky to be fatal.
Exactly.
In the withdrawal process.
And so I went over there, and I spent 7 days in there. I just remember fragments of it, and but the one
so
thing
7 days over in the detox.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and that's that is like such a blessing to this community too. Because if you were to, it's my opinion, and I think if you were to look, like if we were to look in like a bunch of research as well, I think you may find evidence of this. I'm not sure, but I mean that's a critical period. That detox. A lot of that detox is painful. It's long. I'm sure you're very much aware. It's painful. It's long. It's even if you don't want to drink or you don't want to use opioids, you don't want to use these other drugs, like cognitively, you're aware that you don't want to.
Yes.
When that pain is so intense, it becomes even harder. So having like a safe, secure place with medical professionals around, that's a crucial step. And I mean, you get somebody through that first week, they're able to see a little more clear. More clear, it's such a blessing in this community, and I don't think there's a ton of detox beds in the state of Alaska.
No, there's not.
And from what I understand is, especially like people in rural Alaska, but really all around Alaska, we're in this an addiction crisis, an opioid epidemic, but really an addiction crisis. Mm-hmm. And people say, "Oh, I need help," and they say, "Okay, well, we can get you into detox in 6 weeks or 2 months." That's not how addiction really functions.
Yeah.
Or people in addiction, like, okay, let's just set the appointment for 2 months from now. Okay, Tuesday at 10, I'll be there. The chance of that person being there in 2 months, Tuesday at 10 a.m., ready to change their life, is probably not very high. Probably not not high chances. So yeah, I just think that's here in Soldotna, that you can have access to a detox center, and I don't know like the wait list at this point, but that it's available and that it's possible to get in is just such a blessing. And I think people really who are looking to, because I think people, and you probably, a question for you, I guess. People that you've met that are in recovery, some people that I've met, they really feared the withdrawal process. Like that was a large fear. Like getting clean, like living a sober life caused fear. Mm-hmm. But that withdrawal process was especially fear-producing. Right?
It is. You're exactly right. And to have that, I mean, if you're doing something like that, trying to at your house or something,
right?
It just, it doesn't. You're faced with the need, it's like, man, I feel,
I mean, even your body's probably telling you, "Hey, you're gonna die."
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're like, I better do this, or I'm gonna die. So,
I mean, if you're suffering from addiction, you're already having like a neurological, basically, disease, right? That's like, I need this, I need this, I need this, and then your physical body is like, oh my gosh, I'm in pain. Like as an organism, you got a lot of things working against you right now.
Yeah. Exactly.
I mean, your body wants to, like, evolutionary wise, like, we do not like pain. Like, we do not have to learn to dislike pain. Like, pain teaches quick, and you do not need to like learn we learn to dislike being grounded. We learn to dislike certain things. Yeah. Pain, you don't have to really learn that. You just, that'll teach you.
Yeah. Exactly.
So yeah, you're in that early stage, and you got this neurological thing where it's like, okay, I need this, I need this, I need this, and then your body is like, I need to get out of pain. Like,
Yeah, that's, you know,
You have got some odds stacked against you.
that's
Big
what would have
time.
happened to me, you know, if they would have released me from that ER, you know, right onto the street again. You know, would have made it to the nearest liquor store.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
It just, yeah, your body, you know, you feel so awful, horrible, sick, you know, shaking, and you know what will get rid of that.
Yeah.
So it's like a combination of kind of being at your breaking point, but also having support at the right time. Like Eric was saying, that if you put it out, it's probably not going to happen because, you know, there's just some points. I don't know if you had any points like that earlier, but you were just like, this has to stop. Otherwise, you know, it's only going to go downhill and probably fast. But if you don't have someone willing to help you at that point, like that thought might pass and you're like, well, who really cares? You know, I guess
Yeah.
it doesn't really matter.
Yeah,
And
I
then
think you make a
do
good
it
point.
again.
You know, like, one, the person has to be somewhat receptive, and two,
Right.
there has to be the services.
Right.
If there's services and the people aren't receptive, doesn't really matter.
No.
No.
If the people are receptive and there's no services, that doesn't really matter either. You know, it's the combination of the two.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
that's what I told him when I was in the ER there. I told him, you know, I'm done.
Yeah, you were
I'm
receptive.
done. I'm ready. You know, I'm just ready. You know, I don't want to do it anymore.
Is it just because you felt like so close to death, and you know, you said
Yes.
that a mutual friend of
Yes.
yours and that other guy had died. He said, "I think you're gonna die." Then doctors say you're actually gonna die, like in probably pretty recently, and you're just like, "Oh my gosh!" Like death is literally right around the corner. It's either I change or there's nothing else.
Yes. You know, you hang out with, you know, you think it's the party crowd and friends, and, you know, you have fun, and it just progresses, you know. And I've actually lost two friends to being shot by the state troopers.
Mhm.
And
Sure.
and I've lost a couple of friends also from suicide. And in every single one of them, they were highly intoxicated.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's just a mess, you know. But and I told them, you know, they gave me an interview type thing, and I said, outpatient. I don't care how intensive it is. I said, it ain't gonna work for me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'll get out of a meeting and I'll go straight to a liquor store, or I'll show up drunk. You know.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I've never been to any rehabilitation, you know, center, treatment houses, anything. But I know that's what it's going to take, outside of, you know, getting a Connex or something and throwing me in it with a 5-gallon bucket of water and padlocking it.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know,
Dude, there's this really inappropriate, just dirty show, man, that's on Showtime. And I won't say what it is, but there's this guy. There's this kid, he's like 17 or something, and he's like going to be in the military and stuff. And he catches, like, I forget exactly, but somebody's like stealing from his neighbor or stealing from him or something. So he sets a trap because he's like, I'm in the military. So he sets a trap or something, catches this guy, locks him up in his basement with like a bucket of water and some food, locks him up because he's an addict in this show, not the guy that locks the person up, but the guy that he locks up.
Yeah.
And he's an addict. So he locks him up, and he's like, and he keeps him there, and he detoxes him in his basement, just like that, dude. Handcuffs him. Well, then what
In like
happens?
5 days.
In 5 days, he gets them all cleaned up, locks them up, and so then what happens? The guy that was locked up comes back, and he goes, "Hey, man, you know, I've tried to get sober for years. I've tried to get clean. You cleaned me up in 5 days." And he goes, "Here's $5,000 for you to capture my friends and lock them up."
Oh my God.
So when you said that, like, unless I'm locked up in a comic, so unless you would have gotten subjected to this guy's, yeah.
Yeah,
Anyway,
I've
that
never
reminded
seen-
me of. It's funny.
I've never seen that show.
Yeah.
But that's the reality of it.
Right.
I mean, I was that bad.
Yeah.
And you know what? They probably should have put a big, you know, electric fence around it too, because I don't know how, you know, but would probably find a way to get out of it.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, how did he scratch himself through that steel? It's like, what in the
Right.
hell?
Right.
Determination.
Yeah.
So during this point, did you kind of think that you could still quit if you really tried? I mean, before that,
No.
but you were just like, it's kind of hopeless. But then
Yeah,
you're like,
I knew that I couldn't. You know,
Mhm.
I tried even just to not drink as much. You know.
Right.
yeah.
right.
Oh man,
And,
that's
Just drink. You just go to beer or something.
Yeah.
Just drink beer.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've heard that kind of stuff.
Well, I just drink the 12-pack and I go right back to the liquor store, buy another 12-pack and a
Yeah.
fifth of whiskey.
Yeah.
Just not gonna block.
Yeah,
it
we
out.
hear that, you know,
Yeah.
a lot where it's like, I'm just, you know, I'm going to manage it by this. You know, people are like, we've had a lot of people who, like, you know, heroin addiction or methamphetamine or whatever, and it's like, oh, well, I'll just drink beer. Like, talking about, like, what substances they can or cannot, you know.
Yeah.
I'll just drink beer, or, like, even, like, oh, I'll just smoke bud, like, but just buds. And then it's like, oh, well, I'll just do dabs. And then it's like, oh, well, I'll just drink beer and do dabs. And it's like, well, I'll just drink liquor and do crack. I'm like, okay, I'm back. I'm back, you know. So, yeah,
Exactly.
it's just,
It's a slippery slope.
it's, yeah, that's a
Yeah.
good word for it, man.
Yeah.
It gets real slippery real quick.
I wonder if that does work for anybody trying to do moderation.
You know, actually,
like,
what was interesting once was like how you said, you know, how they said I don't have a DUI, and you're like, well, yet, you know, as long as like
Yeah.
if you relapse and you're still drinking and driving, you don't have a DUI, well, yet, you know.
Yeah.
It was this person, I think it was Jen Waller over at Freedom House. I think when I talked to her, she said that when she's heard of people saying things, I think it was her, but I'm not sure. Anyway, it was like when I hear people saying like, oh well, they have this or that addiction, you know, well, I'm just gonna drink beer, and she says, for now.
Yeah.
For now.
Yeah.
That'll work for now, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, so same thing.
Yeah, they have. It's called marijuana maintenance. It's
Yeah.
the lingo going around.
Really?
Yeah, you know, and people think that they can just do that. You know.
Yeah.
Until they get, you know, so high, it's like, man, how did I get a hold of the heroin again? Or
Right,
meth,
right. Mm-hmm.
or alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
It's,
And I mean, I'm sure, you know, Coburn, I bet there's a few people out there who were like suffering from some hardcore addiction that somehow pull off having something here and there. But I mean, that is what I understand is pretty dang rare.
Yeah.
yeah.
That is pretty dang rare and not recommended.
it seems
Yeah.
like it'd require more willpower to stop yourself. I mean, cold turkey sucks, I'm sure, but
See, though, that's the thing.
moderation, like,
That's the thing, is that it's not a willpower thing, you know? It's not a
No.
willpower. It's not like a, you know, like the disease of addiction, like, strips, like, your ability to make that choice away, you know?
yeah.
Like, it's like, it doesn't matter if you have, like, the most willpower in the world. Like, the disease of addiction exists outside of that, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It exists in a very concrete place in your, not concrete, but a very functional concrete lock and key place in your brain where you neurologically, like, in the all sense of you, absolutely need it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? To at the end of the extent, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's why it's such a slippery slope, is because, you know, you get that lock and key again, and it's just that perfect fit. It's like that.
Yeah, and I'm not an expert in the brain, but I think the drugs really hijack a reward circuit in your brain really quickly, and that if you're suffering from addiction, especially, that you get a whole kind of just hijacked brain, where you are just any ability, like the brain starts to associate drugs with things like food and water and reproduction. It's like, I need this in essence to survive, you know, not just
Yeah.
like to be a little bit happier today. It's like in order to survive. And really, we're geared, you know, in like all that we are to learn to survive. And like the addicted brain just says like, well, I'm geared to survive, and I understand that I need these drugs or alcohol, which I would also consider, you know, a drug.
Yeah.
You know, to survive.
It's like you said, you know, you felt like you could have scratched through steel if you needed to get it.
Right.
Yeah.
You know,
Exactly.
it's as much as that willpower exists to not, or exists or doesn't exist to not. I mean, it's just as much to do. You know what I mean?
Sure.
To talk about the willpower of something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is that powerful.
Yeah.
And I have over the years had several people tell me, you know, or ask me, you know, Sean, why don't you just quit?
Right.
You know, just you have to have a little bit of willpower, and you know,
Yeah.
and then, you know, come to find out, I, you know, learned a lot more about the disease, and
Mm-hmm.
people that don't have it just don't understand it. You know?
Right.
They just do not understand
Mhm.
how powerful it is.
Yeah.
Well, and even if you do have it, maybe you feel like, oh, I just don't have enough willpower, and then you feel weak, and like that's not going to help you. But understanding that it's actually how it functions, I think probably really helps.
Yes, it does. And that detox facility, the staff there was so very friendly and kind.
Mm-hmm.
And they do put up with a lot of, some people get violent and just, you know, do nothing but complain. But they're sick and they know. It takes a special type of person to work there. I am so grateful for that place. And it's all overseen by doctors and nurses and stuff. So, yeah, I was given some kind of a benzodiazepine. I just don't remember what it was.
Right. Right.
So it didn't go into convulsions and stuff.
Yeah.
And then I was given also for my pain, because I was in a lot of physical pain. And they gave me some kind of non-narcotic, I think it was called Toradol shots. And it helped.
Yeah.
But, you know, I mean, I saw the reasoning, you know, I was like, yeah, well, we don't want to be giving you a bunch of Percocet. You know?
Right. Right.
And, but I made it out of there and went straight from there over to the in-house treatment, Serenity.
That's Serenity.
House. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And beautiful place. And I had no idea what was going to happen or go on. I didn't have a clue. Just to, you know, just tell you how ignorant I was of the fact. I thought, you know, that I was going to go there and they're going to teach me some special little technique and, you know, say, here, you got to take this pill, and that pill, and then you'll be cured.
Mm-hmm.
And,
That'd be nice.
Yeah, I don't know what I was, you know, I had no idea. But,
That'd be simple.
yeah, I was in for a little ride there. It was very nice.
So I imagine you were mixed with, and I'm not sure, just had a mixture of feelings, you know, fear, hope, a little bit of hope, a little bit of fear, maybe a little bit of second guessing. Like
Yeah.
still wanting to drink, or still thinking maybe you could figure out how to pull it off, you know.
Yeah.
What were you thinking this? So I'm thinking like the first couple weeks, you know, being sober. Or are you really even having a whole lot of clear thoughts? Like what's going on there?
Not a lot of clear thoughts.
Sure.
I actually was in a fog when I went there for at least 2 weeks. I don't even remember a lot of the things. I just, as they say there, I was there but not there.
Sure.
You know, it's like I was lost in my subconscious mind or something,
Mm-hmm.
just on autopilot.
Mm-hmm.
And, but, you know, I was showing up for everything and just trying to soak it all in, you know. But like I said, I was there but not there. And then it kind of, you know, the fog lifted a little bit after a couple weeks. And I remember even one of the counselors told me there, it's like, man, I can just see in your eyes you're feeling a lot better, huh? You look like you're actually present now. And I said, yeah, exactly. And
So this was about 7 months ago, right?
yeah,
Because we're getting into like the here and now.
yeah,
Yeah. So this was just about 6-7 months ago.
yep,
Okay.
exactly. And I was feeling better, you know, able to understand a little more, and I guess participate more in group and stuff. And I just was very surprised, it's about finding out a lot about yourself. And one of the first things, that you find out being an addict, alcoholic, whatever you want to be or call it, is that how selfish we are. And I thought, man, that's the last thing I've ever thought of myself as being selfish. And then they explained it, and I started thinking, and I was like, man, I always did put alcohol first. Willing to go any place with the kids, go camping, go to, football games, whatever. And as long as, I went to a liquor store first. Mm-hmm. And so I always put alcohol first. And I'd never thought of it that way. And also learned while I was in there, we do an extended timeline, very honest one, right down to whatever detail it is. And I didn't even have to be told, it's on a huge, newspaper rolls, that you can do them on. I just automatically, when I was done with it, stood back and was looking at it before I presented it. I could definitely see a pattern. Just with things going wrong in family life, it was just automatic go to that. And it's just, it was the start of me becoming a lot better version of myself. Who I, kind of started out to be, in life. I was had a lot of compassion, empathetic, but, in your addiction, you lose most of that, all your values go out the window, especially when it progresses towards the end. I didn't have any values, didn't even value my life, I didn't care if I died,
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh well, and, they really teach you a lot of stuff there. And
self-reflection was what really started the process, you think, of looking back. You're like, what do I want this timeline to mean? Like, where do I want this to lead to? Did that kind of spark?
Yeah, it sure did, and I looked at the last year and a half, and it was just a chaotic mess. Mm. I mean, it really is. I can laugh now about it a little bit, but it's a very sad place to be. Mm. Or I should say a very, sad, but it's a very dark place to be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I have been isolating myself. Even I hang out with, a friend or something, but, I'd go off and do my own thing, or, go in a bedroom, it's like, me and my bottle of this, or, a few pills of that, and, it's like whatever, whatever's there.
Yeah.
And, but they teach you some techniques and stuff, a lot of things,
What were some of the things that you learned kind of early on that maybe have stuck with you? Or that were kind of impactful?
Being taught to, they say, play the tape forward or play the tape back, so stopping, if you get a big urge to do whatever kind of drug you want to do, is to stop before you do it. Mm-hmm. And because there's some really strong urges, to just go do that. But stop and look, what is going to be the result of you doing this? And for the majority of us in there that actually want to quit, you're going to know exactly what's, you're not lying to yourself. Mm-hmm. I'll be right back, and then be dead. Because they, as they say, it's happened over and over and over again. People that get out and go back to using, they think, I'll just use a little bit. And within a week, they're sitting in the hospital, people praying by their side, because they've overdosed on whatever it is, heroin, meth, alcohol,
mm-hmm.
A mixture of all three.
Right.
It just is really, it's actually really sad,
Mm-hmm.
And the stigma attached, it's actually lessening here on the peninsula.
Mm-hmm.
That's good to hear.
It's actually lessening quite a bit.
Yeah.
The recovery community here is very strong, and there's people from the bush, that I was in house with. There's people from Anchorage. There's actually quite a few people from the Anchorage area that come down here, and then they end up staying down here because of the recovery community. They say it's nothing like Anchorage,
Mm-hmm.
Even though Anchorage is bigger, it's not up to par with it, how they're doing it down here.
Mm-hmm.
And, even people, I've heard some really good stories of people finding places of employment, telling them their whole history, and the people being accepting, and say, well, yeah, we'll hire you, if you get an urge to do that, let us know, and we will try to help you too,
Mm-hmm.
And so it's actually very comforting to see people being understanding, I never in a million years would have thought that, heroin would be a problem here on the peninsula. And alcohol has been around for a long time, and it's easy to get, and it's just is sad that there's a lot of people out there still in a bad place.
Mm-hmm.
And the amount of homeless, because I was running around, the crowds I ran around with, I wasn't, I'd see people walking here and there, heard about it's an epidemic, but I tell you, when you're out there amongst those people, people like me, I should say, it just, I had no idea how many people were living out in woods and how many people were actually addicted. It's very sad, just trying to think of, ways that we could get some more people help. But, you have to be willing and you have to want to be done with it.
Mm-hmm. So, what were kind of your expectations? Because you're about 7 months sober. What is life like today, or what was life like maybe like 4 months on compared to your expectations? Because they're not all the same, right? How you expect sobriety to be versus how it's kind of turning out to be.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, what are some of the... Did you expect it to be like more fun? Did you expect it to be easier? Did you expect it to be faster moving? You know what I'm asking?
I thought that I was in Serenity House for just about 2 months.
Oh wow, it's quite a while.
Yeah, I'd had a lot of problems. Oh, I got divorced while I was in Serenity House.
Okay,
and
that was hard.
Yeah, I just things just kept stacking up, and but I went from there over to a Diamond Willow, which is part of the Serenity program. It is a sober living facility that we live in, and with a curfew, random tests, and so you're held accountable. I didn't have to go there, I also chose to go there, and just because I was thinking to myself, and even with the counselor, just kind of getting into this. Just got a big divorce, single, what are you going to live in an apartment by yourself? I mean, I knew what was a good chance of happening.
Play that tape forward.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I went there, and it took me about 90 days into it, about 3-month time period, and I finally got a big aha moment. I just the way I was... with the urges and whatnot, I was involved in, or I am involved in a 12-step program, and it was just really nice to see that there's people that are just like me, you know, and I'd look at people, you know, just looking at them throughout the meetings, and I think, you know, golly, that, you know, you know, nobody doesn't seem like they're like me in here, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But if you keep going and then you hear people talk, and it's like, man, this person's wearing a, you know, like a suit or something, and I was like, man, you thought, you know, you got so mad you could have, you know, shot a couple people, or, you know, or just really, you know, what you wouldn't expect, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And just their issues that they deal with. And it's a place where you can go there, and it kind of rejuvenates you, you know, to stay sober. It doesn't kind of, it actually does. And you can see people, you know, that it works. You see people that with, you know, 30 years of sobriety.
And still going to the meetings.
Yeah, exactly. You know, it's not always fun and games. It's not easy. This has been the hardest thing I've ever had to do in my entire life. And but it really is worth it as it progresses on a month-to-month basis. Right about the 6-month period, I just I started putting all these things that I was taught into action. Positive thinking, even no matter what situation you're dealing with, just find something, you know, even if it's small, and focus on that, because I found out, you know, what I usually focused on was negative things. And, you know, even if it's a really big positive thing, you can still find something negative about it. So they've taught me to change my whole thinking process. And it was during this time, you know, a little over a month and a half ago, that I just have started feeling just so at peace, moments of peace that actually last all day or for a few days, you know. It just is amazing. I never thought I would feel that way. I don't know if I ever have felt this way. And the relaxation, you know, techniques and stuff, so, you know, you can kind of get out of your head, you know, and fall asleep, you know, with no sleep aids. It actually is just, it's a very nice place to be. And my attitude towards people, you know, I didn't realize I was so judgmental. And so you just start really working on your core self, your beliefs, you know. I found out, you know, that my beliefs relating to marriage, were right out of like the 1950s. And so I took responsibility for a lot of burden that, you know, was kind of a little bit unrealistic, you know. I'm not saying that there aren't people that can be married that way, but in today's, you know, 2019, you know, it just doesn't work, you know, for a lot of people. And you know, expectations, you know, and then of course, you know, add alcohol addiction to it, and it's like, yeah, I don't think that's going to work.
Yeah. So I mean, alcohol is kind of just everywhere. I mean, it's at stores and stuff. So I guess seeing that all the time, how do you deal with that? Or how do they tell you with, like, there's a bar, you know, you just drive anywhere and there's a bar along the way, probably. So how do you kind of deal with that?
Yeah, it is everywhere. You can kind of judge the size of Alaskan towns by how many bars there are in it, you know. Might not be no place to stay, but, you know, guess what? We've got 3 liquor stores and 2 bars. Yeah, it is everywhere. It's kind of an individual type of thing. There are people that can't ever set foot, you know, like even in a parking lot that has a liquor store. And I did, I tested myself a little bit, but just my thinking, you know, I know that it's everywhere, and they tell you that too. And,
Yeah.
And I was able to go in and into a little gas station type store that sells liquor on one side and soda pop and snacks and stuff on the other. And it didn't really bother me. I did stare across the counter looking over there, and I was like, yeah, I don't really miss you right now, that's for sure.
Yeah. I'm glad to not be there.
Yeah,
kind of thing.
Exactly. And that's actually what I was thinking, is I know exactly where that's at. It's like, yeah, I would be there at 8 a.m. when they open, sometime, 4 or 5-ish, and then, possibly, before they close at, 2 a.m. or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I just kind of see it, and it just kind of disgusts me, is how I feel. Not towards people, if they can, do what they're doing, but
right.
just because of how it makes me feel, and what it makes my actions that it has an effect on. Mm-hmm. And I was able to go through every single event in my life that I thought was bad, and guess what was there with them? Everything bad, little bad things, big bad things. Alcohol was in my system, and yeah, I was worried about going fishing again, going camping, even just being at home somewhere, with a little campfire out back. Because I used to do that all the time, and alcohol was always with me.
Yeah.
But they even take you to places that were, like we went to the beach in Kenai and had a big bonfire, and there was, obviously no alcohol, no drugs, and it was actually very fun. I was surprised. Although I was looking, where's the ice? Somebody probably has an ice chest here. I wasn't looking to drink for me, but it just felt very odd for me.
Yeah.
And it's like, but there was no little group off to the side, smoking weed and no fights. It just was very enjoyable.
So kind of an eye-opener. You're like, I know it could be fun.
Exactly.
Kind of, were you afraid?
I was afraid that it would not be fun.
That you just wouldn't be able to enjoy the things you used to enjoy because that was such a big part of your life.
Exactly.
Like, maybe that was why it was fun. It's like, well, actually, no, but it kind of felt like that.
Yeah. It's just the association,
Yeah.
And I'm sure, when I was younger, it was fun, but everything progresses.
Yeah.
And it's just a dark place, man. And I was actually deeply depressed also.
Yeah.
They diagnosed that, which I already knew.
Right.
I mean, I told them, I was like, I agree with all that. And then the final, the divorce was finalized, and it just took me a little while. And but I feel, and I went through all that. I told them, I didn't want to take any antidepressants. I'd actually taken them before all this stuff had started for a little while, and they just had a really weird effect on me.
Yeah.
Even at the lowest doses. But yeah, they stuck with me. They have a fantastic group of counselors, and all kinds of different ways to get to people, to show you, what you can do. And
have you been able to reconnect with friends or family?
Yes, I have. Matter of fact, that's a good point you bring up. I found out that I had disconnected from everything. Every single thing, from spiritually, religiously, family, friends.
Basically, any sense of real belonging.
Exactly.
You had
Connection.
disconnected, yeah.
Yep, I was very much disconnected, and I have since become reconnected.
That's awesome.
Has that at times been challenging, though? I mean, it sounds, and it is, great, but it's not, as another guy said, all these good things that come along are not all sunshine and rainbows. It's hard, right? And sometimes it's harder than you think.
Oh, it is very hard.
I mean, there's got to be some difficulties in forging those relationships again, right?
Yeah, the hardest thing I've ever done in my life.
I'm sure some people were resistant.
Yeah.
Where some people kind of think, oh, here's Sean, you know. I mean, I guess he thinks he's gonna quit drinking. You know, I mean, do you run into that kind of thing?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It gets better, though, the more sobriety that I have.
Getting some trust or some kind of...
Yeah, my daughter, I mean, my whole family was like, didn't know where I was at most of the time and what I was doing, They were concerned, for sure. And, but I had no idea, Once again, that was the alcoholic, selfish. Wasn't even a thought what they were going through, just watching me self-destruct. And my daughter finally came around after she actually participated in Family Day at Serenity House a few times. And
what was that like? Hard?
It was, but it immediately got really, really a lot better.
Sure.
She came to see that I was actually, getting help. Obviously, I wasn't intoxicated. And she was and still is, she's a very strong supporter of me. She's 22. And, Caitlin, was my first child. And she is just such a major support for me. And she's even been here to the main office, in our outpatient program, having a couple of counselor meetings, in the back with her in them too. And that was immensely eye-opening for me. I have a counselor named Brett, my primary counselor.
Yeah, Brett did a story.
Yeah, he told me that.
Yeah, you can listen to his on the You and I for the Kenai page. So Spotify, Google Play, Apple.
Yeah.
His story's there, Brett. Yeah, his title is something like, because he made a good point. I think you probably resonate with this. Like, at times at least, he said, everywhere I went, I followed, or something like that. Like, everywhere I went, I was right there with me. He was going to run away from his problems, but he was he was the problem,
Yeah, that's exactly right.
So that was a cool point that we that was, I don't know, emerged or whatever.
That was when I learned how deeply hurt my daughter was, or I should hurt, but really extremely scared and having anxiety, all caused from me. Major anxiety. But he asked her, so what did you think about your dad, when he was out doing all this stuff? And she instantly started crying, which brought tears to my eyes. And she said, I was afraid he was going to die, I was going to get a call from the hospital. And this time, instead of breaking whatever part of his body into a mess,
he's dead.
That he's dead.
Yeah.
Or, bury him.
I bet, I don't want to necessarily assume, but I would bet that she kind of held your funeral in her own head a while ago.
Yeah.
I mean, it was kind of just accepted. I mean, maybe it wasn't so formal, like, I'm going to sit down and accept that my dad's pretty well dead. But I would imagine that she, to some extent, had to have started to come to grips to that. Like, my dad pretty well is gone at this point. And so...
Yeah, she was on my emergency contact list. It's the only person, that I could put on there. And... so, and she said, she'd get a call from the hospital, and my daughter is actually affiliated with the hospital. And she said, sometimes work would call her, and she'd be thinking, oh my gosh, what's going to happen now? Because the phone numbers, And yeah, so that was, I don't know, I had never really thought about that much, you know. I thought they just, I didn't know if that, you know, I guess, for lack of a better word, because I didn't care at all about myself. I just kind of figured that, you know, probably everybody else didn't that much, you know. And I was totally wrong with that. But yeah, she has been, she's even, she goes to Caribou Hills a lot. She does a lot of things I used to do and want to get back into. Fishing, kayaking, hiking, a lot of hiking. But her age, you know, 22, and she made a little pact with herself, and I didn't even find out about it, you know, till like 3 months ago or something. But when we had went into Serenity House and she had participated, she told herself that, and she didn't drink that much, you know, but yeah, there's, you know, 22 years old, Caribou Hills, you know, I mean, it's a given. And she decided to abstain from alcohol. She doesn't use any drugs, but she's not going to drink again, she said. And she told me, as long as if you keep not drinking, Dad, I won't drink. And so I was like,
wow.
Yeah, that is a wow. And but yeah, she's it's kind of weird for me because she'll do things with me, you know, or you know, and before it's like nobody wanted to do anything with me, you know. You know, Sean and his big drunken show, you know.
It's like re-exploring your life now.
It is. Yeah, I've definitely been reconnected with her. My ex-wife still refuses, you know, to have any kind of a conversation about the kids or anything.
Yeah.
And my son, sadly to say, for me, and I'm not feeling sorry for myself, but I haven't talked to my son since I went to jail, you know, a little over a year and a half ago. And, you know, he doesn't want anything to do with me at the moment, you know.
So it sounds like as you've gotten about 7 months of clean time, that some of your life is coming back pretty quick in some ways.
Yes.
And you're kind of getting some of those aspects, kind of get to learn, I guess, kind of getting some life back, you know.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
When you were drinking, you're pretty well. I mean, you weren't really living, you know.
No.
So it's like you're kind of getting to live again, and in some ways, there's still, I guess, like what I'm trying to ask, I guess, is a lot of, you've been able to kind of, I guess, pun intended, clean up a lot of stuff, but in other ways, it's still a process.
Yeah, it's definitely still
and
a working process.
It's a life, or it's a while at least, you know.
Yeah. And I have no idea how long it will take, you know.
So
but I can deal with it without drinking, you know.
Yeah. What are some of what do you say, as we kind of wrap up, what are some of what do you think are the kind of the important things in your recovery today, as well as maybe any recommendations you would have, or any words to people who are either in addiction and struggling, or in recovery and struggling, or people who are close with those who are either in addiction or in recovery?
I would say for people that are still out there doing the running and gunning show, you know, it really does work. I absolutely had zero faith in a 12-step program. I really did. One of the counselors at Serenity House reminds me, she overheard me telling all the other clients exactly what I thought.
They were idiots, yeah.
Yeah.
They were idiots,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You know, and their little slogans, you know. But I also was smart enough to open my mind, have an open mind, and just keep going and doing it. And
that open mind might not come until you get a little bit of a clear mind.
Exactly.
I mean, you gotta. I mean, maybe if you don't believe it, whatever, but you got to give it a shot until you can at least get a little bit of sobriety under your belt, huh?
Yep, exactly. And the facilities down here on the peninsula are just absolutely awesome.
It's from start to finish, is what I understand.
It is.
Between detox to inpatient to a transitional living, it's start to finish from like your deepest, darkest, most needy points to not as needy.
Yeah.
I mean, now you have some accountability, you have some expectations, but you don't necessarily need to be monitored by a doctor and a nurse 24/7 to ensure that you don't either A, die, or
exactly.
B, A and B die. Just die, really.
Yeah, I would say, if I can do it, anybody else can do it.
Sure.
And it will change your life. It really will. And I was like one of the biggest skeptics and sarcastic about it, but I didn't pick up again, and I just kept doing it. And then, like I said, you get these little aha moments. It's like, man, something's working here. Mm-hmm. And where I am at right now, I just have had so much positive, so many positive things happening, and it just is unreal. And the way that I actually is a big plus of it is actually the way that I feel about myself now. I feel like I am worth it. And the reconnection, like I said, with starting to be reconnected with family, reconnected with my religious beliefs. I'm a Christian. Reconnected with my community, and just humans in general. It just is, I guess it had been so long since I'd been, like I said, I don't know if I've ever felt this way, ever. And, well, to be honest, I don't think I ever have. And it just is amazing. I'm just dumbfounded, actually, every day. And I look back, every day I look back for a short period of where I came from. And I think, my God almighty, how did I ever survive all that stuff? And how did I get here? My only regret is that obviously I wished I would have done it sooner. I really do. I deeply miss my ex-wife, my son. But I'm also very optimistic. I don't know exactly when, but I think I'll be reconnected with my son. I really do. And I know there's a lot of people out there that have their children, in OCS taking care of them. And, you can come back from all of the destruction. I guess one of my major things I like to say is that by becoming clean and being a good example for other people, you really can find redemption. You really can.
Yeah. Thanks so much for sharing your story, Sean. It's just a story from years and years of, really just becoming more and more isolated and alone and disconnected, and it sounds like for years really not really living, not really surviving. I mean, barely. There were some, I would say, years of, especially those last few, years of a lot of hardship and just kind of booze-filled, almost chaos, And,
yeah, exactly.
And it sounds like, I just picture it sounds like those last couple, that last year especially, just says like a lot, I think we heard a lot, I don't really remember this. I don't really remember, just a blur, yeah. Just a blur of being drunk and stumbling from one place to another, but ensuring that you know, the liquor store was a consistent stop in there.
Yeah. Yes, it was.
And now you're 7 months clean, finding some peace, finding more and more connection, and really it sounds like getting to somewhat live again.
Yes, very much so.
So thank you so much for sharing your story. This is Eric and Aaron and Sean and Cobra and all for You and I for the Kenai. And you can hear all of these Spotify, Google Play, Apple. We also are on Facebook and Instagram, You and I for the Kenai. Thank you very much.